your audience, the thing I want them to get from this conversation is be the best leader, the best person that you can be, but you also need to go in with your eyes wide open, not with blinders. Open it up to a broader view. Get to know some of the people you're trying to work with. Get coaches inside the environment. If you're working in a different country, get coaches who can help you adapt to the culture, because they're not going to respond the same way that us gringos may respond to a situation. They're not going to. And so from that's actually when I became a huge advocate about diversity and inclusion, because, being a Black man in America, I had some preconceived notions. Being from the South Side of Chicago, I had some preconceived notions, but I learned a lot about diversity, and I learned a lot about inclusive behaviors to really go and be adaptable, to go help what people need to help the company, help me, help everyone accomplish the goals that we set out to accomplish, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So the kind of good segue into when you first got into Brazil, right? You didn't have those coaches. So you learned that as you went along, but what are some of the things you did, or just what was your mindset? You landed, you accept the job. Right now you're labeled as a fixer at Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to fix the business, but it's a brand new environment. You've never been there to Brazil in a business environment. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you first landed.
The thing I learned,
and also some of the personal aspect of you being in a new country. So the professional big change, but also the person you land there on the ground in Brazil. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So I land on the ground in Brazil, and I go there with who was at the time my boss and one of my sponsors. I mentioned General McDuffie, and we go there for a meeting, and we go there with the team. And the way it was being set up is I would just go with Mike and be there as an observer prior to any announcement. And so when I get there, Mike is a retired Army 3-star general. So when you work for Mike, you had to be there, 3 to 5 minutes ahead of time, because whenever Mike decided to start the meeting, that was the time of the meeting. You didn't go late. So Mike and I go to the meeting. Nobody's there. So we wait 5 minutes and then people start coming in, and we're okay. Then we start the meeting probably about, 5-10 minutes late. And then other people started coming, and they stopped the meeting, and everyone went around the meeting of 20-30 people went around greeting each other, hugging each other, kissing on the cheek, patting them on the stomach. And I'm like, what is going on here? And Mike, being the way he was with us, how he adapted to that environment, because he had done, as with the U.S. military, he had worked with the Brazilian military on many occasions. He just adapted to their style in how they were executing. And I'm looking at him and like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
It was so rigid for so long.
Exactly. Like, who is this dude? But that was helpful. And I can't say that I didn't have coaches. The thing about, for example, the services lead for Latin America, who just retired from Microsoft not too long ago, Francisco Aguilera, he was a coach for me, because he was from Venezuela. He had responsibility for all Latin America. I was coming there to be one of his dotted line direct reports. So I reported into the sub. I was dotted line to him, but he was always helpful in telling me things to think through. And so you always have coaches. The thing that I had to do inside the country was to understand and do a skills versus will analysis. Who has the skills to do what I need them to do? Who had the will to go do what I needed them to do? And then who didn't have that? and how you need to manage that situation. And one of the things I quickly was able to get was one of the things they told me, they called me boss or chefy. And one of the things that they shared with me was, be yourself, Sheffy. I know you're direct. People know you're direct. Your brand and your reputation is already coming in, is that you're this gringo coming here to clean things up. People are going to be afraid of you. And so when I started, there was a culture of fear that was out there in the system. And I knew that in my previous cleanup efforts, fear is a fantastic short-term motivator, but it's not going to be a long-term motivator coupled with the culture. And so I had a few months of people being afraid that, what is this gringo going to do? He's going to go take us out, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things I had to go do was I had to go spend time with people. So I went to barbecues with people. I didn't speak the language, but most of the people in the subsidiary spoke English. And so I really connected with people. The problem that I saw that I had when I was there is, okay, Brazil at the time, I think had like 51% of the population were Black or minority. But I was a raisin in milk, man. So so the piece that I had to understand is, okay, are there people who look like me in this environment? What's going on culturally? I would go to really nice restaurants, but I would be the only brother sitting, and there would be a whole bunch of brothers and sisters in the restaurant, but they were the servers, they were the bartenders and all that stuff. And I'm like, what is happening here? And so
let me ask you that. Based on that, how were you received? Like, how were you interacted with?
Well, being a big Black dude from Chicago, it's pretty normal that when I go into certain environments, there is some reservation and some fear, right? That's kind of what I've experienced my whole career, and I've had to soften at some aspects of myself to try to help people feel comfortable. But for me, the thing that it was just weird, my man. And so I went to HR and I said, "Hey, where are the Black people? like there are no Black people here." And so they were like, "Well, it's hard. They don't speak the language." And I basically, I was very direct still. And I said, that's BS. You can't tell me that they're not, qualified people of color in this country. I was like, there's no way I believe you. And so what I started to do then is, okay, I want to go do some outreach, because I was part of this.
Right. Let me ask you this. So when you pushed back, what was the reaction to your pushback?
It was healthy. Because at the time, the HR business partner that I was working with, who told me that she was kind of running recruiting for us, she shared those things, and I said, I can't buy that. There's no way that could be the case. And I was like, so I took it in a stance of partnership, and I said, listen, you have to help me. Like I'm here. In a new country. This is your country. You lived here your whole life, but I cannot believe that in a country where the population is mostly black or mixed, that we don't have qualified people. And I was like, let's go figure this out. And I said, you got to work with me. So I went after it, not in a punitive way. Mm-hmm. I went after it, asking for partnership and help. And so we started doing stuff. And so one of the things that we did, there is one historically Black college in Brazil called Zumbi Palmeiras. And Zumbi Palmeiras was an escaped slave who went to the north. And so this is a primarily Afro-Brazilian school. And I went to go meet the chancellor, who's a brother, who I'm still, cool with. And it didn't speak a lick of English. I had translators. We were translating back and forth. And I'm like, hey, and so what we started to do was we started to identify and actively look for people of color. And so I found them. I found a woman. She's no longer with Microsoft. She's a Forbes 40 under 40. She wasn't a Forbes 40 under 40 when I met her and when we hired her, But like, and so what I started to do was this was at the time I was the COO, and we were interviewing these people, and I said, okay, it was a Black person, I want to interview him. And so I met a brother who was one of the best open source dudes I've ever seen. He had an open source channel, and I'm like, so I met him and I interviewed them. And when I sat down with him, I did what Hernan Rincon did to me in my interview. I was like, listen, you've talked to the team. They say you're a stud technically. I don't want to interview about that. I want to interview you differently. What is it like to be a Black man in Brazil, working in Brazil? And oh my God, like, because he worked at the time at Amazon. And when I opened that conversation and had that conversation, he's like, I'm in. Like so he left Amazon, came to Microsoft.
Can you share? You said a high level. What did he say? What was his response?
His response was, "Oh my God, my whole life." This dude was brilliant. He taught himself English, went into the military. During the interview, they asked him, like, why did it take you 12 years to get your degree? Well, he's like, because I couldn't afford to go to school, so I took one class a semester for 12 years to get my degree. And then that HR person, when he told her that, she then clicked and said, Rodney, you're right. And then we actively started recruiting Black people. The woman, Liziane Lemos, who was who when she came to interview with the company, same situation. I want to meet her. So okay, you're gonna meet our big boss. You're gonna meet our COO, and he wants to talk to you. She's confident sister. She walked in the room. She was speechless. it scared her, like, because she's like, oh my, I never see, like, your Microsoft COO is a Black man, and she was like in awe.
Wow.
of that and scared. And I like, listen, I know you're nervous. You don't have to be nervous. If you're meeting with me, you're already in there. And so come here. And then when she came, and so we hired a bunch of people.
Let me ask you a question about that. So you were I mean, this is incredible. You were literally a change agent as far as bringing in diverse candidates into the recruiting process and the hiring process. What was within Microsoft Brazil, since you brought in, these Afro-Brazilians, like, what was the reaction within the ranks?
Let me ask a question just right before that. How long did you do that before you started that? Because you landed, what time period before you started making that change?
That's a great touch point. So when I first got there and the business wasn't performing well, I focused about 1.5 years on getting the business right. And then once I got the business where we were landing the numbers and the results were coming in, then I was like, okay, it's time for this brother to get aggressive.
Yeah.
Because I earned the right.
You built the capital. You had the
you had to build the capital.
Sheffy. They were listening to Sheffy at this point.
So we were, the business was there. I had a great the country manager who was my boss. Had a great partnership with him, and then he left Microsoft, and another guy came in to be the country manager, and I had a great relationship with him. But then I earned the right to speak my truth. I earned the right to influence the change, because you can't just go in there. Being, like, you can't go to any environment, like in here in America or everywhere.
Right.
Coming to that angle, you got to go show the results. Let the results speak for themselves, and then you have to go attack or tackle those issues to kind of bring more brothers and sisters in. But I still do that today, man. And,
so what was the reaction though once you started bringing in?
You had different reactions.
Candidates, yeah.
To me, the reactions were very positive. But remember, I was the number 2 guy,
Yeah.
And so there was a certain level of respect and fear. There were some incidents where people said some pretty horrible stuff to some of these people that we came in, but there were other incidents of pure kindness and coaching and willingness to work with people. And so, like in any environment, you're gonna get some assholes. Excuse my language. You're gonna get some people who have preconceived notions. That is inevitable.
Yeah.
But I'd say for the most part, I think the responsiveness was positive, and but we had to go do some damage control. And then one of the things that sparked me on the mission to go say, okay, I want to start BAM. And so Blacks at Microsoft is an organization that's been running in Microsoft for a long time. It's the first kind of inclusive community where you kind of bring people together, and it's been only in the US. And so as a result of that, I said, okay, I'm bringing all these chocolate people in. I need to go create an environment for them. Now, they didn't want that. Like I remember some of them pushed back to say, no, we don't need this. We want to be just like everyone else.
Don't want to stand out or be called out.
Yeah. And I said, what are you, stupid? You absolutely need to have a community that you feel that you're a part of. Yeah. Now, you still have to go deliver the results. You still have, if you're a salesperson, you got to hit your numbers. If you're a delivery person, you got to go deliver quality for a customer and make your customers happy. All of those things are still there, but you need a community to connect. And so when you guys talk to me about what you're doing, this is amazing for me that you guys are doing this, because the three of us can bring pearls of wisdom from our our reality, what we've had to deal through. We've all had to deal with junk, we all had to deal. And people will cringe if they heard us tell our stories and the things that have happened to us over our career. But the thing that is amazing to me is just by you guys doing this type of podcast, you're creating a community for people to kind of learn some things that they haven't learned, but more importantly, to see faces like us, brothers in technology,
being themselves.
Exactly.
It's still flourishing, and that's
exactly. And although we lost you, David, 3 years ago, and you're on that other side, brother, keep doing your thing, man, because you're setting the future, and you're being an example for everybody else that comes after us.
And so I want to say at this point, if anyone out there is watching this and you have some experiences, maybe you've had some passive aggressive negative experience, or if you've had pleasantly surprising experiences, go ahead and comment and share that, because like this channel is about, like, to your point, it's about, I've had an amazing career. I know David could probably say the same thing, you as well. And I want to share those pearls of wisdom and those experiences and those things I've learned along the way. And so if there's questions as well, please put those questions down there in the comments. And if you have any questions of Rodney, I'm sure we can get those answers from him as well.
Absolutely.
Rodney, so we always like to have a personal touch on these videos. So we've talked a lot about your professional career, you landing in Brazil. A lot of people say, well, I don't want my personal life to be affected. I want to flourish, professionally and personally. So you went there, maybe a couple of bags by yourself, but tell us a little bit of how that changed while you were in Brazil.
Well, so when I got here, man, Brazil is an amazing place
everybody knows that.
It's an amazing place. I can say to you